Cultural differences in M&A deals. The surprising factor in an era when it is known that M&As have a high failure rate is not that the organizational culture is a key factor for success. The surprise is that organizational culture differences have yet to become a main factor in the process of decision-making of directors and senior management in the choice of appropriate M&As, in the determination of the value of the transaction, in the planning of the integration of the two organizations, and in the retention of the human capital of the acquired company that tends to leave immediately after the merger. It is important that acquirers should conduct a cultural diagnosis of the two companies to systematically understand the true nature of the differences between cultures. These differences should be systematically mapped out and prioritized. Measurement of culture differences. Many managers already know that it is far easier to close an M&A deal than to implement it in the years following the signing of the agreement. Countless research studies and surveys of senior managers show again and again that the main factor that can cause the integration of the organizations to fail is differences in management culture and their implications on the human factor, such as the departure of managers and key personnel from the acquired company. There are organizational cultural differences of organizations in different states within the United States. Although it is only 5 hours flying time between Pennsylvania and California, there are cultural differences between the two states. Just because both are part of the United States, that doesn't mean that they have the same culture. This applies to countries like India and China too. Cross-cultural management is an essential key success factor in the post-merger integration (PMI) of two organizations. It is surprising, therefore, that organizational culture differences have yet to become part of the decision-making process of directors and senior management regarding such matters as screening and finding the appropriate M&A, determining the value and price of the transaction, planning the integration process of the two organizations, as well as retaining the human capital of the target company, who tends to leave shortly after the deal is signed. One of the main reasons that corporate cultural differences are not properly evaluated in the pre-merger period, not considered during the negotiation stage, and not used in the integration process is the use of a broad spectrum of consultants such as accounting, finance, auditing, legal, investment banking, psychologists etc. Ideally, the consultant's interventions should span all stages of the M&A process. In many unsuccessful mergers, the assessment of integration process challenges and related HR problems due to culture clash remains outside the decision-making process at the pre-merger and negotiation stage. Whereas in a successful M&A, the assessment done at the pre-merger stage is implemented immediately after the deal is closed. Many mergers also fail because of a lack of methodical and thorough measurement of the culture differences. One of the more well-known examples is the acquisition of NCR by AT&T in the beginning of the 1990s. The centralized management of NCR did not suit the openness and creativity of AT&T. Eventually, NCR was sold at one-half its market value and AT&T lost $3 billion. In contrast, there are opposite cases, such as the acquisition of the Morris Aviation Company by the Southwest Aviation Company. Here the acquiring company invested 2 months in learning the culture before the agreement and ended the integration process successfully. Evaluation of cultural differences. Evaluation of culture and differences in culture is a complicated task. The methods can be based on direct and indirect contact with the target company to be acquired. When there is considerable contact with the target company, it is possible to use primary sources of information that are from the company itself. When there is no contact with the target company, or very little contact, then reliance is placed on secondary sources of information outside of the company. In the planning process, reliance is primarily placed on secondary sources of information on the company. There are organizations in which such information about competitors, suppliers, and important clients is collected regularly in the framework of market intelligence. In any event, you can collect information ad hoc from the following sources of information. Information published by the company. This information portrays its characteristics, such as its credo and its mission statement. In addition, this information can include the company's presentation on its website and press releases. Articles and interviews in the press. Interviews with senior managers from which the management approaches of the organization can be understood and, in addition, articles that review the organization in different business newspapers. Methodically collected articles by database companies or industry sites. Is another source lectures and speeches given in different places by members of the management. Research divisions of different organizations collect material on many companies and the sectors in which they operate. Interviews with managers and workers in your organization who worked or who had a business relationship with the target company. Conversations and interviews with information holders, such as accountants, lawyers, management consultants, investment bankers, and so on, all of whom were in contact with the managers of the target company. Conversations with the managers and the workers of the target company at different events and encounters, such as study days, exhibitions, shared learning at a university, and so on. For a public company, you can examine the company's financial reports, where there generally are announcements from the CEO to the stockholders. These announcements can add information about the organizational culture. There is interesting information in the company's material when the company recruits capital. The evaluation of the culture can be performed methodically in a way that ranks the target company in its different dimensions. The collected information can be cross-checked to create reliability and examined against other topics to obtain validity. Conclusion. Evaluating and measuring cultural differences is essential in making the choice of the right partner for an M&A and should be examined and measured during both pre-merger planning and negotiation stages.